I still remember the first time I saw him. It was a Tuesday evening at the community center, one of those converted warehouse spaces with exposed brick and two bright fluorescent lights. I'd walked past the chess club meeting every week for months, always curious but never brave enough to go in. That particular Tuesday, something changed. Maybe it was the way the autumn light filtered through the high windows, or maybe I was just tired of being a coward about everything in my life. The room smelled like old coffee and wood polish. About a dozen people sat at folding tables, most of them retirement age, hunched over chessboards in various states of concentration. I stood in the doorway, feeling completely out of place, 26 years old in my rumpled work clothes, briefcase still in hand. I was about to turn around and leave when he looked up. His name was Cassian. I wouldn't learn that for another 10 minutes, but I'll never forget that first moment of eye contact. He had these incredibly kind eyes, the color of dark honey, and when he smiled, it transformed his entire face. He was maybe early 30s, wearing a faded blue sweater with the sleeves pushed up to his elbows. There was a small scar above his left eyebrow that I would later learn came from a childhood bicycle accident. "You play?" he called out, already standing, already moving toward me with this easy confidence I envied immediately. "No," I admitted. I know how the pieces move, but I've never actually played a real game." Most people would have nodded politely and returned to their own match. Cassian gestured to an empty table in the corner. "Perfect. I'll teach you." That's how it started. 3 years ago this week, actually. 3 years of Tuesdays that became the axis my entire life rotated around, though I didn't realize it at first. That first evening, Cassian set up the board with patient hands, explaining each piece like he had all the time in the world. His voice was gentle but engaged, the kind of voice that made you feel like whatever you were saying mattered. He taught me about controlling the center, about thinking 3 moves ahead, about sacrifice and strategy. But mostly, I remember watching his hands move the pieces, the way his brow furrowed when he was thinking, the soft laugh when I made a particularly disastrous move. "You're thinking too much," he said after I'd agonized over a move for 5 full minutes. "Chess is partly intellectual, but it's also intuitive. Trust your gut sometimes." I lost spectacularly that night, and the next Tuesday, and the one after that. But I kept coming back. I told myself it was because I wanted to learn chess, to finally be good at something strategic and cerebral. That was a lie I maintained for longer than I should have. The truth was, I was falling for him, slowly, terrifyingly, inevitably. I'd known I was gay since high school, but I'd never really done anything about it. A few awkward dates through apps, one forgettable relationship that lasted 3 months, mostly a lot of loneliness disguised as being too busy with work. I was a junior accountant at a firm downtown, the kind of job where you disappear into spreadsheets and everyone forgets you exist. My life was beige and safe and completely unfulfilling. Cassian was color. He was a freelance graphic designer, which meant his schedule was chaotic, and he sometimes showed up to chess clubs straight from meeting clients, still dressed in the kind of carefully casual clothes that made him look effortlessly put together. He had opinions about everything, from the best coffee shops in the city to why classical music made you a better chess player. He was passionate and funny and completely comfortable in his own skin in a way I'd never managed to be. By the 3rd week, we started arriving early just to talk before the games began. By the 2nd month, we stayed late, often being the last ones to leave, the janitor politely coughing to remind us the center was closing. We talked about everything. His complicated relationship with his parents, who'd never quite accepted him being gay. My fear that I was wasting my life doing work I hated. His dream of eventually opening his own design studio. My complete lack of dreams for the future. "You must want something," he said one night, the chessboard forgotten between us. Everyone wants something. I wanted him. That was the truth I couldn't say. Instead, I shrugged and said something about maybe traveling someday, which was true but not the whole truth. The problem with falling for your friend, especially when you're not sure they see you as anything more than a chess student and pleasant conversation, is that every moment becomes this exquisite torture. The casual way he'd touch my shoulder when pointing out a better move. The time he brought me coffee, already prepared exactly how I liked it because he'd been paying attention. The inside jokes that developed, the shared glances across the room when someone made a particularly pretentious comment about chess theory. I started living for Tuesdays. The rest of the week was just marking time until I could see him again. Around month 6, things shifted slightly. We started texting between sessions. At first, just about chess, articles he'd found, or puzzles he thought I'd enjoy. Then gradually about other things. He sent me a photo of a terrible design mock-up a client had requested. I sent him a meme about accounting that made him laugh so hard he said he snorted coffee. The conversations grew longer, more frequent, more intimate in that careful way where you're testing boundaries without quite crossing them. I memorized everything about him, the way he always ordered the same sandwich from the deli next to the community center, turkey with extra pickles. How he'd run his hand through his dark hair when he was frustrated with himself, the small constellation of freckles on his left forearm, the fact that he was left-handed but wore his watch on his left wrist anyway, because his father had told him that's how men wore watches. By the end of the first year, I'd improved enough at chess that I occasionally won games. Cassian pretended to be devastated each time, clutching his chest dramatically, but his pride in my progress was genuine and obvious. "You've gotten really good," he said one Tuesday, studying the board after I'd managed a particularly clever combination. "I'm going to have to actually try now." "You mean you haven't been trying?" I asked, mock offended. "I mean, I've been teaching. Now we're playing." His eyes met mine, and there was something in that look, something that made my heart stutter. But then someone across the room called his name with a question about an opening strategy, and the moment passed. Year 2 was harder. Cassian started seeing someone. He didn't announce it formally, but I noticed the changes. He seemed distracted some Tuesdays, checking his phone more often. Once, he had a faint hickey on his neck that he'd tried to cover with his collar. I felt physically ill when I noticed it, but I smiled and played chess and pretended everything was fine. His boyfriend's name was Marcus. I learned this when Marcus showed up one Tuesday to pick Cassian up after our game. He was handsome in an obvious way, tall and athletic with an easy smile. They looked good together. Everyone probably thought so. "This is James," Cassian introduced me, and I shook Marcus's hand and said all the right things, and inside I was dying. I thought about quitting chess club. I even skipped 2 Tuesdays, claiming work emergencies. Cassian texted both times asking if I was okay, if everything was all right. The second time I didn't show up, he called. "Did I do something wrong?" he asked, and he sounded genuinely worried. "No, of course not. Just busy with work." "Because you're my best friend, James. These Tuesdays, they matter to me. You matter to me." Best friend? The words should have been comforting. Instead, they felt like a door closing. I went back the next week. I couldn't stay away. And if friendship was all I could have, I'd take it. I'd take whatever pieces of Cassian's life he was willing to share. The relationship with Marcus lasted 7 months. I watched it unfold from my position as the best friend, the chess partner, the safe person Cassian could vent to when things got complicated. Marcus didn't like that Cassian spent every Tuesday evening at chess club. Marcus thought Cassian should be more ambitious, should charge more for his design work, should want a bigger apartment and a newer car. Marcus didn't understand why Cassian still played chess with a bunch of old men and one accountant in a community center that smelled like old coffee. "He says I'm wasting my time," Cassian told me one evening, moving his knight almost absently. "That I should be networking instead, making connections that could help my career." "What do you think?" I asked carefully. "I think I like my life. I like my work. I like my Tuesdays." He looked up at me then, and there was something fierce in his expression. "I'm not giving this up. I'm not giving you up." They broke up 3 weeks later. Cassian seemed relieved more than heartbroken. "He wasn't right for me," he said simply. "I kept trying to make it work, but some things just don't fit, you know?" I knew. I knew exactly what didn't fit. What I didn't know was whether Cassian and I could ever fit together as anything more than friends. Year 3 started with a change in routine. The community center announced they were renovating, and the chess club needed a new location for a few months. Cassian immediately offered his apartment. "I've got space," he said, "and honestly, it's closer for most of us anyway." His apartment was nothing like I'd imagined. I'd pictured something minimalist and modern, all clean lines and designer furniture. Instead, it was warm and lived in, full of books and plants and artwork on every wall. There was a cat named Bishop, who immediately claimed my lap during our first game there. The chessboard was set up on a coffee table in his living room, and he served actual good coffee in mismatched mugs he'd collected from various cities. It felt intimate in a way the community center never had. Just the two of us most Tuesdays now, since many of the older members had drifted away without the structure of the official club. Sometimes one or two others would join, but mostly it was us, playing chess, talking, existing in this bubble where the rest of the world couldn't quite reach. "I like this better," Cassian admitted one evening. "The club was great, but this feels more real somehow." I agreed, even though being alone with him in his apartment was its own special kind of torture. The domesticity of it, the casual intimacy, the way he'd kick off his shoes and curl up on the couch, the way the lamplight caught in his hair, the way Bishop would alternate between our laps like he belonged to both of us. It was during one of these evenings, about 8 months into year 3, that everything changed. We'd finished our game, one of those rare perfect matches where we were completely evenly paired. Every move a challenge. We were just sitting there, talking about nothing important, when Cassian suddenly went quiet. I looked up to find him staring at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "What?" I asked, self-conscious. "I need to tell you something," he said, "and I'm terrified it's going to ruin everything. But I can't keep pretending anymore." My heart stopped. "Okay. These 3 years, these Tuesdays with you, they've been the best part of my life. You've been the best part of my life. And I kept telling myself it was just friendship, that I was happy with just this, but I'm not. I'm really not." He took a breath. "I'm in love with you, James. I think I have been since that first night when you stood in the doorway looking terrified, and I thought you were the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen." I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, could only stare at him as 3 years of careful control shattered completely. "You're in love with me?" I managed. "Completely. Hopelessly. I understand if you don't feel the same way. I understand if this makes things weird and you need to stop coming. But I couldn't keep lying to you. To myself. Cassian." My voice cracked on his name. "I've been in love with you since week 2. Maybe since that first Tuesday. I've spent 3 years thinking you only saw me as a friend." The look on his face was pure astonishment. "Are you serious? I dated Marcus because I was trying to get over you. I thought you were straight. I'm very gay, and very much in love with you." We both started laughing then, slightly hysterical. 3 years of mutual pining suddenly revealed as the most ridiculous misunderstanding. And then we weren't laughing anymore because Cassian was kissing me, soft and careful and perfect, and I was kissing him back. 3 years of wanting poured into that single moment. That was 6 months ago. We still play chess every Tuesday, but now I don't go home afterward. Now his apartment is becoming our apartment, my clothes mixed with his in the closet, my books on his shelves. Now we're planning the design studio he's always dreamed of, and I'm looking into going back to school for something I actually care about. Now when he looks at me across the chessboard, I can see everything he feels written clearly in his eyes, and I don't have to hide anything in return. This Tuesday, on our 3-year anniversary of that first game, Cassian set up the board as usual. But when I sat down, I noticed something different. Where my king should have been, there was a small box. Inside was a ring. "I figured 3 years was long enough to wait," he said, his voice shaking slightly. "What do you say? Want to play this game with me forever?" I said yes. Of course I said yes. How could I say anything else to the man who taught me chess and patience and courage, who saw something in me worth knowing before I saw it in myself, who turned Tuesdays into the most important day of the week? We still haven't actually played that game. We got distracted, the way we often do now, the way I hope we always will. The board is still set up on his coffee table, my king replaced by an empty ring box waiting for next Tuesday. We have all the time in the world now. All the Tuesdays stretching ahead of us, infinite and precious and ours.